Welcome to Figures in Fission. On today's podcast, I'll be speaking with Nicole Dorfman. Nicole is the Secretary of REACT Alliance, an organization whose mission it is to protect California's Pacific Ocean and its coastal communities from the destructive impacts of offshore wind energy development. So, Nicole, welcome.
Thank you.
Maybe you'd give our podcast viewers a brief history of how REACT came about.
Well, React came about, I think it was about 3 years ago. The president, whose name is Mandy Davis, she's a long-term environmentalist, activist type person in the community. And once she learned about these plans for massive wind farm off our coast, she started talking to people and, hey, we need to get together and fight against this project and protect our natural resources here. And so she kind of gathered people and she asked me to be on the board. And I agreed. And she got some wonderful people. We have a diverse range of talents and knowledge. So I think it's a fantastic board.
Um, what's the current status of the proposed wind farm you're fighting against? I understand there's big news today.
Yeah, well, the Morro Bay Wind Energy Area, as it's called, is just off the coast of San Simeon, which is north of where I live in Morro Bay. There were three different companies, and we just learned, as you said, on Monday, that one of the companies, Golden State Wind, has taken the Trump administration's offer to buy them out. So they took that, which we've actually formally requested to get rid of these leases.
Really?
And yes, we've sent letters to the Department of the Interior and specifically asking them to cancel these leases, however that happens. So we were very pleased with the news that the Golden State Wind pulled out, and now hopefully the other two will follow suit.
Now, if they decided to keep going, would they be able to open the wind farm without Golden State Wind, or would that just kind of scuttle the whole plan?
No, the other two companies, I assume, could proceed
Okay.
without the third one. Mm-hmm.
I didn't know if it was all coming in on the same transmission line or not, or how that works. But yeah, I wouldn't think so. It seems like it's all or nothing. Um,
Yeah. And Carl, regarding are they all coming in on the same transmission line?
mhm.
None of that is worked out. None of those details have
Oh,
been
okay.
determined.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, why do you believe Californians should oppose wind farms?
Well, I think there's numerous reasons. One of them is it's greenwashing. What's being said about offshore wind, that it's a clean and green energy source that can replace the fossil fuels that people want to get rid of. I don't think it's clean or green, and we can talk about that. It's also intermittent. It doesn't operate, as you know, 24/7 like a nuclear power plant would or a gas fired plant. And it also takes up a tremendous amount of space. What they're looking at just for those first three leases is 376 square miles of pristine
Yeah.
ocean. So I consider that like a big factory in the middle of the ocean, which I can't imagine is good for the marine environment by any stretch of the imagination.
The good news is that even though some wind farms back east are proceeding, nothing has happened on the West Coast yet. But
Yeah.
just in terms of wildlife, birds and whales, and
Mhm.
any comments about that?
Well, sure. One of the things I actually spoke at a couple meetings last night, we can get to that, what's happened locally, some big news, is that this notion that these are green is just false. So, for example, the turbines are over 1,000 feet tall, about the size of a 70-story building. And they're manufactured at this point in China using coal-fired energy. So that's not clean to me, not where the coal is mined. None of it is clean for the folks over there. It's sort of like it's offshoring our pollution. Aside from that, let's talk about the birds. It is in the middle where they've sited it here off the central coast of California, right in the middle of the Pacific Flyway. So it's in a migration route
Hmm.
for birds who have been flying that same route for eons, and what we're being told is don't worry about that, the birds will go around. How are they going to go around almost 400 square miles right in the middle of their migration path? And if it's, let's say, a cloudy day or a stormy day, if they don't even see the turbines, also they go so fast. What we've heard is that birds can, sadly just get sucked right into it, even if they're trying to avoid it. Another thing we know as far as the birds go is that structures attract fish. So the fish will be right by the wind turbines then where the birds are essentially looking for food. So it's just a whole mess of a situation.
If they did a study on it and found out that it wasn't that big of a deal, but why not do the study first, instead of find out the hard way later?
Right. Well, Carl, just to let you know how these things work, actually the Audubon did do a study. They received millions of dollars from one of the wind companies to do a study, which in fact, shocker, proved that the birds will learn to go around.
Lots of conflicts with this. Yeah.
Lots of conflicts.
And a couple of weeks ago, to our audience here, a couple of weeks ago, REACT graciously allowed us to join their tour of Diablo Canyon Power Plant. It's a nuclear power plant, which is local to many of the group's members. How did that tour come about?
That tour came about because there's a woman, her name is Ellie Ripley, who's a very dedicated member of REACT Alliance, and she used to be a tour guide. She's a retired tour guide. And so she's the one who really spearheaded it and asked if people would be interested.
I think she is somebody who shares both of our the projects of our organization and yours. So that's what we have in common.
Yes.
Okay. It's my understanding that when it comes to nuclear energy, there are varying levels of support for it among REACT members. Is that true?
Mm-hmm.
After the tour, do you think there was less support among your members, more support, or about the same? I think once they got up close to it and saw the plant itself, did that change anything?
Let me backtrack a little bit. So REACT Alliance is a one-issue organization, and that one issue, the single issue, is offshore wind. So people often ask us, well, if you don't want offshore wind, then what do you want? And in order to keep our coalition together, because we do have a very diverse coalition, we have had to agree that as an organization, we will not take a stance on any other energy. So if I'm speaking about nuclear, it's Nicole's personal perspective on it. So I can speak about it from my own personal perspective, not from REACT, because REACT will not take a position on nuclear, on anything.
It's your understanding that some people are opposed to it, maybe, and others are for it, and kind of a mix.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's
can I ask you what
exactly
your personal opinion is?
Yes, I can certainly talk about that. So I didn't know a whole lot about nuclear energy. I think kind of just growing up, and I had been opposed to it, and then really thinking, well, why am I opposed to it? Well, gosh, I don't know. I've heard all sorts of things, but now, second guessing whether those things are true or not. So anyways, I did go on the tour, and I was so pleasantly surprised. I thought it was an excellent tour, amazing experience, and it certainly gave me a much more optimistic perspective on
Good to hear.
Diablo Canyon and on nuclear power in general. I do believe that, I carpooled with a few other women, and so we talked a lot during the drive home, and I think they were equally impressed and equally had a positive understanding of Diablo and nuclear power.
Okay, and then we've already talked about Golden State Wind, Lisa, and that was really the only other thing that I had to talk about. Are there any other comments that you'd like to make?
Well, I can tell you some updates that just happened last night.
Sure.
On the Central Coast here, there were two areas that had been targeted or identified for potential operation and maintenance ports to serve the wind energy area. One of them was my hometown of Morro Bay, which is how I got into this. The other was Avila Beach, Port San Luis. So on the positive news, I'll start with first, Morro Bay, the studies came back basically saying we cannot recommend a project here. That was amazing. We are so grateful. They said it is technically feasible. Of course, anything's feasible with the right amount of money, but they said, it's in a marine estuary. There's many threatened protected species, and there's all sorts of protections with the regulatory environment here in Morro Bay. So they said, yeah, basically it's probably never going to happen here in Morro Bay. So I was thrilled about that. Port San Luis, Avila Beach, kind of the opposite. It looks like they're saying, oh, it is quite feasible here. We need more studies. The studies seem to be the Trojan horse. Each study is just, a brick in the pathway to manifesting this industrialization that they want.
And so who are the studies being financed by? I'm just curious.
This last study that was the state had given a grant to San Luis Obispo County, and then the county paid $1 million for this global company called Mott MacDonald to do 2 studies, one for Morro Bay and one for San Luis Bay.
Presumably, if the government pays for it, there's no conflicts of interest. That's always a little bit iffy too, but it's about as close as you're going to get, right?
Correct.
Research for hire, basically. All right. Anything else?
No, that was the big news from last night. So, one thing just to get across, some people believe that offshore wind, because of the federal administration pausing all the permits, out in the federal water, say, oh, nothing's going to happen here, it's dead. And what I say, which I believe is true, is that, well, in 2028, we don't know who's going to be president at that time. If it's somebody like Gavin Newsom, God forbid, going to go, oh, look, we're all set. We have our on-land infrastructure all ready to go. So this is not dead at all. I think if there's another administration that's opposed to it, then it'll be dead. Then it'll just be too long.
Okay, very good. Thank you for joining us today. It's always good to take the pulse of residents in San Luis Obispo about the plant. And viewers, you can learn more about REACT Alliance and their work at reactalliance.org. And please bookmark fissiontransition.org for future developments related to nuclear energy and its expanding role in our clean energy future.